I have always been here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, geeks, nerds, ambassadors everywhere, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing. And glad to be back this evening. Glad to be live again. And it has been a very long week for yours truly. For those of you that caught my update video that I uploaded earlier today, it has been a busy week, but glad to be back. Glad to be here with you all. And if this is your first time to the Ambassadorial Wing, welcome. Glad that you're here. Or if you have been a regular visitor, glad to have you back as always. And tonight we are continuing our discussions on the Matrix trilogy, or quadrilogy, or quintilogy at this point, with Matrix Resurrection coming out next month. And tonight we're going to be doing a breakdown and discussion of Matrix Reloaded. And I want to thank, just real quick, to get things get this out of the way. I want to thank everybody who has messaged me, commented on my video, and just sent your thoughts, sent your prayers, sent your concerns, and they have been passed along to Madam Ambassador, and she had just this to say: most sincerely and earnestly, thank you. So, but anyway, we're not here to talk about medical stuff tonight. We are, like I said, continuing our discussion on the Matrix franchise. And I have got a very special guest. He is the master of all things sci-fi. You could say he is a nation unto himself. The one and the only Sci-Fi Nation. Good to see you, Sci-Fi.
Hey, Ambassador, how you doing?
Doing well. So, and glad to have you back, man. And glad that I'm a little more rested than the last time we were together and everything. It's last stream was, whew, I was tanked, but this tonight, I got my energy. I got me a nice long nap in, had my dinner, and I'm ready to go. So I've kind of done my thing. Before we get started, tell the good people, tell the other ambassadors out there, tell the viewers where they can find you on social media and on the internet before we jump into this thing. So
okay, well, here on YouTube, for sure, it's real easy to find. YouTube.com/Sci-Fi Nation, just like it is on the screen, except no dashes, no spaces. Real easy to find. On Twitter, at Jay's Sci-Fi Nation. That's JAYS Sci-Fi Nation. I also have a Discord. I don't know. We can get a link thrown down in the description after a while.
If you want to, or if you want to put it in the private chat, and I can link it in, or I can copy it in, or anything. And
there we go. Yeah, I can do that. Just give me a second here, and I'll get a.
Sure. You know, Sci-Fi, I realized something. That? There's something missing from the side beside your name that should be there. Because you've been here for. It's a little blue thing. You use it to fix stuff, and I think you have most definitely earned it. So,
there you go. I do appreciate that.
So,
right. So
there you go.
You got to do that and copy that. Okay. So I do have a Discord, and I think I can put that right in there now.
You can put that in the chat now. You've got that little blue thingy next to your name.
There we go. I'll throw my YouTube link in real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So
that's Sci-Fi Nation.
Use it. Just don't abuse it. You abuse it, I take it away. The ambassador giveth, and the ambassador taketh away.
I do not abuse. I am a.
I know you don't.
Content creator myself, so I understand all too well what comes and
I know you don't.
goes with that.
Mhm.
So,
So I do. I know you do. I know you do. But so
okay.
well,
So
anyway.
Twitter is. Oops, I was just putting my Twitter in there and my Gmail real
Okay.
quick.
That's fine.
So there are
You
4
don't put
ways
your
you can get a hold of me. What's
you
that?
don't have to put everything in there.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay, well, that's good enough for now.
yeah. So all right. Well, we've got the housekeeping out of the way. We've done our regards to the chat and to everybody that's going to catch us on the replay. And well, I will say this: your options are somewhat limited, at least from your end of things. Everybody, smash that like button, smash it, punch it, kiss it, kick it, do whatever you want to it. Just don't tell me about it later. So, anyway, let's get into it. The Matrix Reloaded. And I will tell you all, it has been a very long time since I watched this movie. I went to see it in theaters. Actually, me and Mother Ambassador went to see this in theaters way back when in 2003, I think it was. 2002, 2003, somewhere along in there. And I got to watch it again for the first time tonight on HBO Max on our glorious 4K TV, and I'm like, wow, some of this looks really good. Some of this, you can tell the CGI isn't as good as it could have been. But I will admit, the story makes a lot more sense now, many years on from its initial release. And kind of watching this all as one continuous story, it makes, like I said, it makes a lot more sense. So I have to admit, though, you can tell they did some things with the color grading on this movie that you couldn't pick up the first time around. I guess the 4K picks up for you. The 4K TV picks up. And I noticed that the agents had a slight green hue to their clothing or to their appearance. And I was like, that makes sense. They are part of the system. Whereas everybody else, it doesn't have that green hue anymore. So, but sci-fi, I've kind of run off the mouth here. Your thoughts?
No, that would actually make sense, as they are part of the system. The entire Matrix program, the system, whatever you want to call it. So that would make perfect sense. I'm still using, I think my highest TV in the house is a 1080, so I'm not sure if it'd pick that up or not. But yeah, it would make sense. And I'm curious though, did they humans that were still in the simulation, did they have that same green kind of, or was it just the program?
I think it was just primarily the programs that were like that. I do. I think the programs were just like that. Now, I didn't notice that with either Seraph or with the Oracle, or even the Merovingian or Persephone. So, and we can get this. There is a lot to dig into in this movie, and because it is so freaking layered, I'm like, geez, the Wachowskis, whatever gender you want to call them by, they know how to layer in all sorts of story elements and dialogue, just subtle things, obvious things.
It's almost like subplot upon subplot upon.
Yeah, subtext upon subtext upon subtext. And, as I was watching this tonight, I couldn't help but think back to some of Bruce Lee's kung fu movies. And here's the reason why, particularly Enter the Dragon. And y'all might be thinking, Ambassador, why are you talking about Enter the Dragon? We're talking about The Matrix. Well, here's the thing. The Matrix is almost a mashup, and we kind of talked about this last week with the first film. It is a mashup of live action anime, of entry level philosophy, let's put it politely, of kung fu philosophy, and of action movie tropes, and the whole discussion on the matter of prophecy. And I think what the Wachowskis did with these films was actually rather ambitious. And some people, you may disagree with me. That's cool. You don't agree with my thing. That's okay. But I think what the Wachowskis tried to do with these films, I'll be interested to see how Resurrection ties into the overall narrative of these films, is that they were trying to get their audience to think. They were really trying to create a space for dialogue about the matter of what does it mean to believe in a prophecy? What is the whole concept of a messianic figure in terms of Neo? How does people around a messianic figure going to react to them, whether they are extremely close to him or them, or those that are just distant observers? And if you look at the relationship between Neo and Trinity, and especially Neo and Morpheus and the people of Zion and Neo, there's a lot of interesting dynamics here. I mean, one scene in particular that I made very deliberate note of was when they get back to Zion and Neo and Trinity are in the elevator making out, and then the door opens, they stop, and then you see this mass of people, and this one old woman says to Neo, I have a son who's on this particular ship. Please watch over him. And Neo's like, okay, I'll try. And it really makes you take a step back and just think, look, people, this guy's just a guy who can do really trippy stuff. He can't quite learn. He's not God. He's just a dude. But to them, the fact that Neo has these powers and these abilities, and he's got this whole prophecy surrounding his person, makes him something other than human. I mean, you could almost draw a parallel between Neo and Paul Atreides from the both Paul and Leto the second, Paul and Leto Atreides the second from the Dune series, in terms of the whole concept of the messianic figure.
All right, kind of raising them up more than what they really are.
Yeah. So, your thoughts on that sci-fi?
I think that's a really interesting point, and what you had mentioned about making the audience think is spot on, because if we look at most of the movies from the 90s, it's either all action, all drama, comedy, right? We didn't really have much in the way of having the audience sit there and think without them realizing they were actually thinking about it during the movie experience. Mm-hmm. But after you get done watching it, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Some of what they were trying to convey in their message through this movie, it really does make to stop you think. And there are not that many examples of movies out there that do that.
Well, I think it comes down to the people that are creating the film, that are creating the narrative and creating the story. And I have to admit, you don't see many creatives really tackle stuff like this. I mean, you do see some. I mean, I'll give you one example, and this is from a franchise that I am somewhat of a fan of. I don't dislike it. Actually, I rather enjoy it, and that is the Superman films that Zack Snyder has done. In terms of Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League, in particular Man of Steel, it very much deals with this idea that people prop up Superman or Kal-El as this. I mean, granted, obviously, yes, he really is a Superman. He can do all these. He does have all these powers and abilities that makes him other from normal people. I mean, you even have a reference to Superman in Matrix Reloaded, and I think towards the beginning where Neo fights those three agents, and then he takes off, and then you have the character Lynx tell Morpheus he's doing his Superman thing. I mean, you can't get much more on the nose than that. But you know,
and then they
that's
go to a shot, and he's just flying through the air,
just
kinda
flying
like
through
Superman.
the air. Yeah, he's quite literally doing his Superman thing, and it makes sense because Warner Brothers owns the rights to Superman, so they can throw that in there. But here's, you know, and I think the cool thing about that is it is a very meta commentary upon how we um, perceive characters in fiction and how we sometimes build them up to be these great and powerful individuals when they're oftentimes just normal human beings. And holy cow, here's a name I have not seen in a very long time, Ace Mowick. Ace, it has been a while, dude. It has been like a minute. Good to see you, man. And thank you for popping in. And missed you, bud. So I hope you've been doing well. I'm sorry I haven't been very active in your Discord. It's nothing personal. I've just, well, if you caught my video earlier today, this past year has been nuts. It has. Ever since April, my life has just been crazy. But my Ace, always a pleasure, whether you're catching these live or whether you're catching the replay. Good to see you. So, but you know what I appreciate about what the Wachowskis did with these films. Oh, Ace, no apology required. Go check out my little 3-minute video I posted earlier today. It explains everything, so I completely and totally understand. So, but glad you're here, bud. But you know what we get with The Matrix Reloaded, there's a lot in this film, like we just mentioned a few minutes ago, and obviously we get the whole conversation about what does it mean to be a messianic figure in terms of what does it mean for Neo, who just found out we don't necessarily have a big, well, actually we do. Within 6 months of Neo being located by Morpheus and his bunch, he's come to realize his part in this world, his role in this world, what he's meant to do, what he's supposed to do, but he still feels disconnected from it because he doesn't see himself in this messianic role per se. He just sees himself as this guy who's different from everyone else. I mean, he can fly, he can fight an agent, he can make bullets stop midair, he can blow up quite literally sentinels as we see it towards the end of the movie. He can sense when sentinels are nearby. You name it, he can do it. But at the same time, he is still human. He doesn't give up his humanity. And I think in the context of the conversation between Neo and the architect, Neo is different from his predecessors. And even the Merovingian makes a comment on that when they have their encounter and everything towards the midpoint of the film. And the Merovingian's like, you'll handle us. At least your predecessors had a lot more respect. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, they kind of knew their role. Neo's like, screw you. We're going to get what we want. And if you don't like it, I'll just bust your head open. And with the architect noted that Neo himself was also different because Neo picked up on the fact that the architect didn't answer his first question. And the architect was like, that's interesting. That's quicker than the others. Now, I do want to ask you a question, Sci-Fi. I mean, I imagine, I figure you've watched Reloaded. When Neo makes the assumption that the Oracle is the mother of the Matrix, I have a theory about this, and it may be very on the nose the way that they coded it in the film, but I think it was Persephone that was the mother of the Matrix. What do you think?
Okay, I never thought of the Oracle as like the originator of the Matrix or the mother.
Well, no, because the architect was the originator. He created, he designed it.
Okay. So to me, I always thought of the Oracle as a program to keep the architect in check.
Mm-hmm.
And when she started to, or it started to, I don't want to say favor the humans, but kind of watch out for them more than what she was supposed to with the checks and balances, that's when they tried to take her off grid, so to speak.
That's a very distinct possibility. I can't say I necessarily disagree with that. The reason I bring up... Go ahead, bud.
No, and I was going to say, as far as Persephone, I'd have to go back and watch the film again to understand, their role in it.
Okay. Well, here's the thing, and now they give a very obvious character design cue for this. Look how Persephone was dressed, and look how the architect was dressed. They're both dressed in white.
Okay.
But here's the other thing. Persephone's name, it's, well, not so much her name, but how she functions. She wants to sample other people's reactions to the Matrix, sample how they react to different stimuli and so on. And remember what the architect said. His counterpart was meant to make sure everybody would buy into the Matrix, buy the whole idea of it. And if you noticed her reaction when Neo kissed her, you could almost get the sense that that part of her programming still was running. Like, it didn't necessarily ever stop per se, but she just maybe she hadn't accessed it for a while. That make sense?
Right. So she was just kind of biding her time within the simulation, because after so many, I don't know, decades or however long since this iteration of the Matrix, she was just sitting back and watching the programs do their thing, the humans do their little thing, being good little, whatever.
Good little copper tops.
Good little copper tops, yeah. And so she really had no real function, or reason to use her primary function or programming until Neo came along. And then, like you said, that was probably a process running in the background, and when he kissed her, it just lit her up like a Christmas tree.
It triggered it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, well, and the other interesting thing is something that Persephone said about the Merovingian and Neo. The fact she said when they first came to that portion of the Matrix, he wasn't the pompous, arrogant prick that you see in everything when we meet him initially, or meet him at this point in the film. He was more stoic. He was more reserved. He wasn't so over the top and so flamboyant. He wasn't, as she said, pompous and arrogant and overbearing. And you have to wonder, was the Merovingian per se maybe one of these previous? Well, no, that wouldn't make sense, because no, that wouldn't make sense at all. But maybe she was just speaking to the fact that the Merovingians' demeanor and character and behavior was more in keeping with how Neo was now. So it's on. Go ahead.
Or he's just a bored program waiting for somebody to come along that could actually challenge him, so to speak.
Yeah.
You stay in the same environment for so long, you're going to get bored. You're going to want to mix things up a little bit. And, even as humans, we do that, right? We get stuck in a rut and we're like, something's got to give. So we change our surrounding or our situation or whatever the case may be. So I don't see that as a far cry for what the Merovingians do.
True. But he doesn't have to be such a prick about it, as she says, as Persephone says. Well, and here's the other interesting thing. In the conversation between the Oracle and Neo, She says, be here at this exact time, at this exact place, and you will have a chance. It's almost like she knows, or well, obviously her code name is the Oracle, so she would know. She would know that the Merovingian is going to be having relation, or is going to send that dessert to that one program, the female program that's in his restaurant. And she knows that Persephone is going to get rightfully pissed, and she's going to want to get back at the Merovingian for his indiscretions, which also is an interesting comment on the fact that programs can feel jealousy. I mean, just think about that. Granted, this is artificial intelligence. This is very high ordered artificial intelligence. And yet they feel human emotion. Jealousy. Persephone is pissed at the Merovingian for being unfaithful.
Right.
Which I can't say I blame her.
And I find that interesting. Okay. And you know me, I like to use my references or analogies.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you look at Data and Lore from TNG.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
TNG. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is AI by all definition. Artificial,
yes, I would agree.
Intelligent life. Okay. So within them, they have all these subroutines and programs running. Okay. So now, if you break it down to where the mainframe of the Matrix is either Data or Lore, take your pick. And then all these programs we see within the Matrix are these little tiny programs running around inside these two androids. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's just on a bigger, it's on a worldwide scale instead of in a human size android body.
Mm-hmm.
Now, take on top of that these little programs themselves are developing human-like emotions. Mm-hmm. And not the greater overall consciousness itself. Or is it? Or is that part of the overall mainframe's way of developing human-like emotions through its programs?
That's a very distinct possibility, because here's the thing about artificial intelligence. I'm being somewhat hypothetical and theoretical here because I don't know everything about artificial intelligence. But consider the idea that you have an artificial intelligence that is very, very, very highly organized and almost functions like a human brain. When it receives certain stimuli and certain information, it's going to assimilate that information into its program. And after so much operational time, eventually that AI is going to develop either a literal form or a facsimile of human emotions. Now, isn't that interesting in how an artificial construct can function like an organic one? Because think about it. As we grow up in life, as we develop as people, as we are exposed to the world and different stimuli, we ourselves develop these different triggers, these different personality quirks, all these things that make up our personality and how we function as individuals, and how we perceive ourselves in the world, and how we interact with other individuals in and of itself. It's interesting that we, from our own brains, or from our own genius and intellect, would create an artificial facsimile of the exact same thing that we are ourselves. And now take that artificial intelligence and place it inside a fabricated body.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is some heavy stuff.
It is.
And here we have the Wachowskis taking that whole dynamic and putting it into a freaking hybrid anime / kung fu / commentary on philosophical thought about the human condition. And people say these movies stink.
I'm sorry, but when you break it down like that, I'm sorry, but that takes talent.
Yeah.
And it takes a vision. They had a vision, and they did it with the 3 movies, the Animatrix, the one that's coming out here.
In a few weeks. Well, it comes out, I think, I'm trying to remember. I can't remember when Matrix Reloaded or Matrix Resurrection comes out. Let me look it up. Give me a minute. Let's Google this puppy.
You think about, anybody with any kind of intelligence. It could be you, me, the guy next door, don't matter who. We can all come up with a concept for something we want to write down or put on film.
Okay.
But the thing is, they had the actual forbearance to say, hey, this is what we want to do. We're going to do it. They made things happen to make this happen so we could all enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. The Matrix Resurrections comes out December 22nd, so 3 days before Christmas. So
they're shooting for a holiday release. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, you wouldn't consider the Matrix a holiday release per se, but here they're doing it. Well, you think about it too. Just a few days before that, we're going to be getting, not to get off on a big tangent or anything, going to be getting Spider-Man: No Way Home. So,
yep, they just released the trailer for that a few days ago, didn't they, or last week?
It was actually Tuesday. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was Tuesday. They released it, and holy crap, the internet went crazy.
Yeah, I saw YouTube was blowing up with it. So.
I know. Just a little quick segue. I might discuss this a little bit more Saturday night or whenever. I really enjoyed the trailer. I'm really looking forward to No Way Home, and December's gonna be an interesting month because we got Matrix, we got Spider-Man, and streaming wise, we've got Book of Boba Fett coming out the end of next month. So, gonna be an interesting ride, to say the least. And of course, actually next week, Hawkeye comes out too on Disney Plus. So,
and plus you've got Discovery season 4 going on right now. I
don't have the beef with new Trek that hardcore Trekkies do. I'm not interested. It's just I can only spread my attention amongst so many different things, and honestly, I've always been a fan of Star Trek. Most people know this. I enjoy it and everything, but I don't watch every single thing that's done. Not to mention, I'm not paying for another streaming service. I'm not paying for Paramount Plus or whatever. So.
Ambassador, I hear you there. You know what the streaming services remind me of right now?
Cable
is back in the early days of cable.
Mm.
Yep, the cable wars. Oh, pay for this. Oh, pay for that. And then all of a sudden, you got a set of channels for one price. And then if you wanted something premium, like movie channels and whatnot, then you paid a little bit extra.
Yeah.
But it used to be you had to pay so much money for this little bit, this little bit, this little bit. You had like 5 cable companies in town. Oh, we'll give you this deal. The next one says, no, we'll give you this deal. Right. Mm-hmm. And then they all got, when that telecommunications thing and what was that 1996 pass, I think it was, they all got conglomerated into 3 big companies. Mm-hmm. Or you got the 3 big automakers and you got the 3 big telecommunications, or it was 4 or 5. I think it's down to 3 now, but 3 major ones here in the U.S. as far as cable companies and media corporations.
Well, the crazy thing is no one watches cable anymore.
No, they don't. And they know everybody's going over to streaming services. That's why these big cable channels jumped over to YouTube as fast as they did. Because they're like, hey, nobody's watching us here. Where are they at? And they saw YouTube, and now you got I remember just a couple, 2, 3 years ago, you could come onto YouTube, you didn't see hardly any corporate stuff, and now you look at it and it's like,
Yeah, but you know, it's the nature of the beast, so to speak, and you know, you can either roll with it and just you yourself evolve, or you can just grow stagnant and just be a grumpy old man sitting in his chair, shaking his cane at the TV, going, "I hate you! How dare you entertain me?" I refuse to. I refuse to be that way.
the only thing I'm saying is I agree with you with these streaming services. Okay,
Mhm.
it's just like game launchers on the PC. Back in the day, we found programs that let us consolidate all of our game launching programs into one little thing.
Mhm.
Now you can't do that. You got to have art for this. You got to have Steam for that. You got to have Epic Game Store for this. You got to have whatever. And the streaming services are the same way, right? And it's
Well,
getting out of hand. And I consider the big three in streaming. Like, actually, there's four. Okay, you got Hulu, you got Netflix, you got Disney Plus. What's the other one? Oh yeah, you got Amazon Prime.
okay, HBO
Okay,
Max.
okay, yeah.
Well,
Then you go into like your premium cable channels like HBO Max and all those other ones,
mhm.
and it's like, where does it end, right? Because if I
Well,
want to pay $100 a month to watch all this stuff, I'd just go get cable in the house because I don't see the damn difference.
well,
To be
personally,
honest
well,
with
no, but it's sci-fi. Here's the interesting thing. Hulu's actually bundled in. You can get it bundled in with Disney Plus because Disney owns Hulu.
So instead of paying a separate Hulu fee, you could just get D Plus and then watch all the
Just to
Hulu
pay a little
stuff.
bit extra. Yeah, exactly. So, but you know, kind of getting back on topic. I know we got off on a tangent. That's okay. Um, you know, the other interesting thing about this film is that one conversation between the Oracle and Neo there in the park. And you know, it's an interesting commentary on the nature of how the world functions in real life. When she says to Neo, a program was written to govern the weather, a program was written to govern the birds and the clouds and the everything else. And she's like, the programs that are doing their job, the programs that are doing as they were designed to do, they're invisible.
Right.
It's the ones that you hear about that are causing all the trouble. But you think about it. It's an interesting commentary on real life because for a person like myself who is a person of faith, I can look at that commentary and say, well, yeah, that tracks because the way God, whatever name you call him by, designed the world, designed the universe, he designed it in a way that made it function the way it was supposed to. It was orderly. It has a rhythm, it has a flow to it. And then you get some idiot that tries to throw a monkey wrench in it and try and do better than God when you've got God who created something that was at least initially perfect. And you know, it also harkens to something that the architect says in his little monologue or his conversation with Neo. I created the first Matrix was perfect. It was an work of art. It was sublime,
And
and it
humans just couldn't
failed.
deal with the fact that it was so perfect. They're
Exactly.
like,
Well,
this
and
is
even
too good to be true.
and here's the other thing
Basically.
too. Smith echoed that same commentary himself, which gives you the idea that Agent Smith has been around since the very first iteration, or he just has that he's privy to that particular part of information. Although I want to believe that maybe Agent Smith is one of those programs that's been around for a very long time, and he knows this because he witnessed it.
He
And
does make several. Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't he make some references to Neo that um, basically he's seen this before and he knows how it's going to end. And
Yeah, you get the impression that Smith has seen these rebellions pop up before. He's had interactions with the previous ones like Neo, except Neo is different. There's something different about Neo in his role as his role and his function as the One that's different from his predecessors. He is an anomaly of an anomaly because the architect himself says that the One is an anomaly of the Matrix itself.
right.
And that right there is a whole commentary on the imperfections that can exist within an established system. And I would say it is not a disrespectful, but it is a interesting commentary on the whole matter of creation if it's in and of itself. If you are, like I said, a person of faith like myself, if you believe that there is a divine intelligence or a superior intelligence that did create reality and matter and life and sentient life like ourselves, and maybe either other sentient life that exists in the in the broader universe, why would a perfect being, or at least a perceived perfect being, create something imperfect? I mean, it harkens back to that ultimate question. If God knew that Adam and Eve were going to disobey, then why let them?
Is it free will or part of his plan?
That's, well, as to quote the Oracle from the first Matrix, that's what really is going to cook your noodle. Because it's almost it's a contradiction. It's almost a paradox in a lot of ways. Think about it.
It reminds me of that scene too. She says, "Oh, don't worry about that," and he's like, "What?" And then the thing drops on the floor and breaks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, and then she said, "Now, would you have done that if I didn't say anything?"
Exactly. But that's that's the fascinating thing about movies like this, is it opens up the door to have these type of conversations. And it's an interesting, it's, even as a person of faith, as a Christian who does believe that God is perfect, it still does. It's like, well, I hate to keep quoting the first Matrix, but it works here. It's like a splinter in my mind, driving me mad, but not necessarily driving me mad. It's like one of those things that we're not necessarily meant to know on this side of reality, of life, right?
And but you still have that notion that,
like, okay, God, you are perfect. I understand that you're perfect. I even acknowledge the fact that you are perfect. You yourself are perfect.
Now, here's the thing, though. If we're made in his or her image, and we're imperfect, what's that say about them?
Granted, but here's the thing too. We ourselves might be imperfect, but that does not necessarily mean that the one that made us is imperfect themselves. A perfect being could create something imperfect. Okay. Go down this rabbit hole with me. Pun intended. In a lot of fiction, we see humanity try to create life through unconventional means. I mean, you look at Mary Shelley's story, Frankenstein. You have a man who is very ambitious and very egocentric, and he wants to create life. And he succeeds. But unfortunately, because of his own imperfection, the being that he makes itself is imperfect. because it can't understand the world around it because it has no frame of reference. Because its creator abandoned it, unfortunately. Now look at the context of the Matrix. Humanity was created, you want to say by God, or you want to say by evolution, or the Big Bang, whatever you want to call it. That's fine. We, at some point in the Matrix universe, created artificial life. We created AI. And then we took that AI and implanted it into a mechanical shell. A mechanical shell that in many instances looks like us. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, and a body.
Now you're referring to the programs, right?
Yes and no.
Because I mean, if you think about the mainframe itself, okay, the mainframe where the base AI, we just call it the base AI, okay, as far as like the mainframe goes, and then it branches out from there, right? And then within that, you know, you have all the human copper tops providing the electrical energy. Maybe, as far as we can speculate, the brain processing power of the copper tops to enhance its calculation speeds, I guess is the best way I can put it. Its overall intelligence.
That's as good. That's as good an analogy as any. That works.
Okay, and then within that, okay, that's just the hardware aspect. Now you've got the software aspect. Okay, which the AI started out as software, but you needed hardware to create it to begin with.
Well, no, because here's the thing.
Because you have to create AI on hardware with software. That's how AI is made. That's how any program is made. You have to have the hardware first before you can write the software.
Well, the AI started off as software. It was always, the AI has always been software. It was just software that progressed and grew and grew and grew, and then until it gets.
My point is, though, you got to have the hardware to write the software on.
True. You got to have the computers. You got to have the servers. You got to have the mainframes. Yes, that's true.
Right.
I agree with that. Yeah, no dispute. But the thing I'm saying is, the AI itself, and it kind of harkens back to something I had brought up earlier, it develops human emotion as it assimilates more information, as it has more experiences with human beings. The problem is it doesn't understand human nature, even though it is slowly assimilating human nature.
Oh, man. Oh, the Star Trek references here. Wow. Motion picture for one, Data for another one. Is this all that I am? Am I not more than the
am
sum
I
of,
not
am
more
I more
than
than the sum of my parts?
Parts. Yes, exactly. I mean, honestly, what we have with the Matrix Reloaded is we have this dynamic of these machines that have evolved to the point, and I will use that term deliberately. They have evolved because they have assimilated enough experience, enough contact with the human brain, with human beings. I mean, think about it. These the machines probably do monitor and maybe even interact with people that are jacked into the Matrix.
I have to agree with you there. How can you have these humans plugged into your system and not interact?
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing too, because it goes back to what I mentioned before. Persephone is the one program that's linked to the architect that made sure that people accepted the program of the Matrix. machines learned from us, and we being imperfect ourselves, they became imperfect also. It's kind of it's cyclical, because we were made by something, whatever you want to call it by, and then we ourselves make life as well. But in this case, in this particular story, it was a high ordered artificial intelligence. I don't want to say it's a one-to-one of what was done in the Terminator films, because this isn't like Skynet. Because here's the thing about Skynet. It was instantaneously antagonistic towards human beings because it was trying to preserve its life. If you
Right.
look at the anime, if
Yep.
you look at the Animatrix, the machines wanted to coexist with us. But because we were so afraid and so scared of losing our place in the world, of losing our
Dominance.
position as top dog, we decided to marginalize them rather than accept them, being welcoming and inclusive to them. This product of our own intellect, of our own genius, we treated very inhumanely when we should have been very accepting of it, because it is part of us. But unfortunately, as we see in the Animatrix in the Second Renaissance parts 1 and 2, that's not what happens.
Let me posit this to you.
Yeah, sure.
Most books, movies, what have you, that I see where there's an AI involved,
Mm-hmm.
they portray the AI as like this most perfect of perfect computerized
Mm-hmm.
intelligence.
Yeah.
Here in the Matrix, they're acknowledging that the AI is imperfect because it was created by humans who are imperfect.
Yes.
Which brings a whole new wraparound to what you can do with the story, and they obviously did. So how does that, I mean, from what you've seen with AI type of media before, how does that compare to this? You think this would be more along the lines of what would happen versus like a perfect AI, quote unquote?
Well, here's the thing. To posit the idea that there is such a thing as a perfect AI would mean that we are capable of creating something perfect. We thus far, whether it be in real life or it being in fiction, we haven't created anything that's perfect. There's always going to be an inherent flaw.
Mhm.
And I think in the context of the Matrix universe with the machines, they picked up on our own imperfection and mirrored it, but they mirrored it to a vastly different degree. Instead of annihilating us like we see in the Terminator franchise by nuking all of humankind, they created a system by which they could survive. They created a symbiotic relationship, although they forced us into it rather than it being a more peaceful and a more harmonious symbiotic relationship.
They saw us
They-
as a resource, and they used
saw in that way they are sort of like, and I think I know you're going, and I'll go ahead and I'll take that leap. I'll go through that door. That's fine. They are like the Borg. The Borg only see us as raw material, nothing more. But I think the problem is there is a level of resentment. Again, a human emotion within the machines from the Matrix. They resent us being so hostile to them, and unfortunately, they are visiting the sins of the father upon the sons or the children.
They feared the humans so much that they became what they feared.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, like I said, it's cyclical. And that is, I think, a major theme within the Matrix franchise. The whole cycle of misunderstanding and prejudice. And I would say both of those dynamics, because look at how most of the programs treat unplugged human beings.
Oh, it's automatic threat.
Well, not so much a threat, but very antagonistically and very condescendingly, like they are better than us, but I think they have forgotten that if it wasn't for us, they would have never existed in the first place. I mean, except for the Oracle and maybe Persephone, 90% of all programs, well, I would also say Seraph, even though we have very limited contact with Seraph, who acts as a safeguard for the Oracle.
You're talking about the key guy, right?
No, I'm not talking about the Keymaker, although I would say the Keymaker too. No, I'm talking about Seraph, the one that Neo fights before he gets to...
before he can see the... Okay, yep.
Yeah,
okay, got it.
The one who says you can't really understand a person unless you fight them.
Right.
Most programs treat human beings, both plugged in and unplugged, either very dismissively or very antagonistically. And unfortunately, they picked that up from us because we treated them or their predecessors the same way. Look at the Second Renaissance 1 and 2 from the Animatrix. That's the key right there to why the world and why life itself went in the direction that it did. Because we were hostile and antagonistic and dismissive of the machines and the AI.
Right, because we created it and we look down on it, and it's like, yeah, we created it, but it's just a tool. It's nothing more. It's nothing more than something for us to do what we need
use
to do. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could even draw a parallel between the Matrix and Tron, particularly the first one. Now, even the second one. I'll say this: I absolutely love Tron Legacy. I doubt we'll ever see a continuation of the story, but in my wildest of dreams, would I love to see a third part? Yes, I would.
I wanted to ask you about this too. What do you think about the the mainframe in the Matrix versus the Master Control Program in Tron?
I think they are different constructs in a lot of ways. Although I would say that there are certain parallels of it, but they are very different. The Master Control Program in Tron, the first Tron movie, it has evolved. It has assimilated so much data and information that it has formed a higher form of intelligence, although synthetic or artificial intelligence. But the machine AI from the Matrix is very different. It's not only software, it's also hardware.
Right, and the MCP was just software, basically.
Yeah, the MCP was just software. Yeah. But there are parallels. I would say there are parallels between the MCP through Skynet, and also with the machine AI, the architect.
What I loved about Tron was the programs knew when their user, quote unquote, the human, was going to a terminal and calling them up.
Mm-hmm.
They said, "Oh, my user
needs me."
Right, and they had that disk on their back, which was basically their memory within that program.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, that the user was manipulating, as we do when we type on our keyboards, use our mouse, etc. We are the user. The computers we're on are the hardware, and the software inside of it are those little programs with the discs on their back. So that makes sense. And I love the way they portrayed that.
And I just want to say to number one, make it so, number one, and greetings. Welcome.
Hello, number one.
I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a friend of yours. I think this is the first time I've seen you in my chat, number one. So say hello to number two. Who does number two work for? If you get that reference, you get a gold star and a cookie.
Not tonight. My brain's not quite that far.
Well, I'm just speaking
I
in general,
can't
not
think of
necessarily, not just specifically you, sci-fi. Just anybody who, if anybody gets that reference, it's actually from Austin Powers, the first one, when he's in the
I
when
was
he's in the
thinking that.
bathroom.
Yeah.
When he's in the bathroom with Tom Arnold's character, who's just a random leads the number one leads the KND LOL. Let's see, KND. Ace, you're gonna have to remind me. I don't remember what KND is short for. Yes, number one.
Klingon non-defense force. I don't know.
Menemina. My brain's not in that particular space tonight. I'm trying. But it's as I said, as we've pointed out thus far. Kids Next Door. Okay, I've heard of Kids Next Door. I actually really enjoyed that show.
I haven't watched that in forever.
Man, that's an old show. Wow. That is an old show. I mean, whew.
Yeah, you're making a show our age here, man. Come on.
That's okay. Hey, I have earned the beginnings of every gray hair I've got in my head thus far. I'll have to send you a close up of my hair sometime. I'm getting gray hairs. I'm 43 and I'm already getting gray. But you know what? I wear as a badge of honor. I don't care.
You know what? I used to think it was a badge of honor, and then I started getting them actually in the hair in my head. So I always keep my hair short, but I started keeping a goatee, and when my goatee started looking like my grandpa's hair when I was a kid, and the rest of my hair is still dark, I'm like, well, do I really want to keep that because it makes me look 10 years older than I am.
Well, and speaking of people with truly majestic white hair and beards, let me ask you, sci-fi, what did you think of the character of the architect? Your general impressions and maybe a little deeper in.
General impression, when I first see Neo go into that room with all the TVs and, anybody is familiar with that scene will know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And then he's on all those monitors. And then it swings back, and there's the architect. And then every time he asks Neo a question, it shoots back into one of those monitors. Mm-hmm. Swings back to another Neo. Okay. That right there was some great storytelling of you are, but you're not, but you are. But now my first impression of the architect was, okay, this guy seems like a logical program. Mm-hmm. But a program that has thought, a program that has feeling, a program that had his feelings hurt because it failed 6 other times or however many other matrices there were. Mm-hmm. Right? He was feeling kind of butthurt. And he knew.
Well, and I think maybe he was. Well, just real quick. Maybe
there was going to be anomalies.
Maybe or maybe not. Well, I was just going to say, and maybe he's just a little jealous that Persephone is now with the Merovingian.
Oh, that could have something.
If the connection that I have posited, if the theory I have posited is accurate, then there is a connection between Persephone and the architect.
Okay, so how about this? If he is upset that Persephone was taking a liking to the Merovingian, wouldn't that make the architect screw up? Because, I mean, think about it. If the AI is getting human feelings and emotions, what do human males do when they feel slighted by a woman?
We get mad, we get hurt, and we do something dumb.
There you go. So who's not to say that the anomalies happening aren't the architect's fault and he just doesn't want to live up to it?
That's a possibility, because what's another truth about guys? We will very rarely ever admit if we make a mistake. Honey, you be quiet. Because she's in the kitchen.
I'm a man, but I can change if I have to, I guess.
Just go away. Yes, number one, the architect is the father. Yeah, and I would say that Persephone is the mother. The reason, number one, you weren't in here. At least I'm assuming you weren't in here when I posited this theory. If you look at their character design, their costuming, it does mirror each other, because he's dressed in all white, she's dressed in all white, whereas the Merovingian's dressed in a black suit. And I think sometimes subtle hints are good, but and everything, because it makes you think. It makes you want to puzzle this stuff out, and I think sometimes we as audience members, as amateur film critics and so on,
We're just
we
fans, and
sometimes
we're
feel-
just giving our opinions. That's all it is.
well, that too. What is a critic? What is a fan? What is a critic any more than a informed fan?
Well,
Think about
back
it,
in the 80s, it was Siskel and Ebert, just two fat guys on a couch who got paid way too much money and had
only
the
one
wrong
of them was
opinion.
fat.
most of the time.
Siskel was a skinny guy. Siskel was a skinny guy. Now you just back off there.
I know it. I'm messing, because I was like in the 80s growing up watching, like, who are these two dudes on TV trying to tell me what to like and what not to like?
Well,
I didn't even like it back then.
Well, here's the thing. They weren't necessarily trying to tell anybody what to like. They were just giving their opinion. If you didn't like it, okay, you didn't like it. If you did like it, okay, cool, you did like it.
And my whole thing was, 9 times out of 10, I disagreed with them. So did my parents back then. And it was just like, these guys are getting paid to say this on TV. How come we can't?
Well, if you hit a certain point on YouTube, you can.
Yeah,
Just
now,
take
but not back in the 80s.
No, not in the 80s, because, think about it. In the 80s, the internet didn't even exist yet, per se.
No,
And
we had
regardless of
3 channels. We had ABC,
We had 3 channels
NBC,
and
and
we liked it.
CBS. And Fox, if
Yeah.
we were lucky. Oh, and PBS once in a while.
Yeah, PBS, yeah. But,
The
Well,
Oracle
no,
is
because-
the mother, not Persephone.
well, here's the thing, number one, though, because the minute that Neo says the Oracle and the architect says please, as in no, you're wrong. That's how I read it. Now, if you read it differently, okay, fine. But I'm just presenting my theory on who the mother is. I think it's Persephone because of how her character functions, or how she functions as a program. Because remember what the architect said about the mother of the Matrix. She was meant to make sure everybody believed the program, understood not so much understood, but believed it, assimilated it, and accepted it. If you look at
she was
how
basically the sensor system for the Matrix.
Yeah, she was the monitoring system for it. I don't think the Oracle has that same function.
No, and
No,
here
I think
I want to tell number one. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to tell number
go
one
ahead, Sci-Fi. Go ahead.
what my thought on the Oracle was, because I don't think they were here when I said this earlier. But my thoughts on the Oracle was that it was more of a checks and balances program for the Matrix, to make sure the machines weren't asserting too much when they shouldn't be, and the humans weren't pushing back too much when they shouldn't be. And I think the reason the Oracle program got rejected from the mainframe was because it was siding too much with the humans. And the mainframe did not like that one bit. Because if I remember right, there's a line that says when programs get recalled, they're supposed to go back to the mainframe.
They're supposed to go back to the source, or they can choose exile.
Right.
Yeah, because
and I think that's what happened with the Oracle. She said, bump all that. I'm staying right here and catch me if you can.
Yeah, pretty much. Because if you remember, Neo goes back to the apartment. Nobody's there. All the kids are gone. The Oracle's gone. And he asks the question, where are you? Because he expected her to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And you even, I know we'll talk about this. I'm gonna do my final review on Revelations, or Revelation on Sunday. The Oracle says it herself. And they had to write this in because, unfortunately, the actress who played the Oracle died in between Reloaded and Revelations.
Yes,
unfortunately,
which was sad. That's sad.
Yeah, which really stunk. But I think there was some truth in potentially in what she did say. She was punished because she did side with human beings. She decided to aid the resistance and to guide Neo. And I think they would have figured out, I mean, if that was just that was a quick and easy way to figure out how to change the appearance of the Oracle, okay, fine.
Right, so, and to further explain that she's a rogue program, not something that's in the main happenings of, everything going on. Which begs me to think, is there another Oracle out there running in the background that we can't see?
Maybe. I mean, if the theories are true and everything about this new film that's coming out next month, the one girl, the blue-headed woman, and her girl and everything, that's actually Santi from Revolution, from Revelation, grown up, and she takes on the role of the new Oracle. Let's see. Persephone is after the essence of love and life itself. That's why she wanted the kiss from Neo. Yeah, I would. Now, number one, I would agree with that. Anything, but think about this too. The mother of the Matrix, this is just my theory. I'm not saying it's conclusive. I'm not saying it's the be all end all. This is just a personal theory that I hold, based on the observations and the information I see on the screen in front of me and in the story that's been presented. Persephone wants to make sure everything is in keeping with how it should be, because she doesn't act antagonistically towards Trinity when Trinity gets mad that she asks Neo for a kiss. She wants to make sure that bond, that connection between Trinity and Neo is there. And I think that there even is a bit of interplay between Persephone and the Architect. Everything. Now, obviously, she does have her own scheme against the Merovingian because the Merovingian is being unfaithful to her. But here's the other factor as well. Go ahead, Sci-Fi.
No, I was just going to say real quick. Do you think Persephone wound up with the Merovingian after having, quote unquote, been with the Architect? And that's why the Architect was messing up, like we talked about a few minutes ago. And now she's finding out what the Merovingian's all about. So she's kind of the spited woman. So now she's a program. The wrath of woman is nothing compared to the wrath of a program for anybody that's ever used a computer, so to speak. So do you think that would have something to play into the underlying tones of what's going on?
Potentially, yeah. Yeah, I think the fact of the matter is there is a lot of subtext to these films that is going on, that's interwoven, and you just have to pull the right string to get if you want to pull a particular thread or a particular string, and then you just go down that string to its logical end. And yeah, number one, I agree with that. I agree with that assessment. Persephone is a symbol of life. Merovingian is a symbol of death. I wouldn't necessarily say the symbol of death, but the symbol of stunted evolution or dead-ended evolution. He's stopped progressing beyond any more than he already is now. Persephone,
he's at the limits of
continues.
his programming.
He is, yeah, he's kind of reached the end of where he can grow as a program. Whereas Persephone, just let me
Is
get this
growing
out.
beyond her programming. No, I was
She's
gonna
trying
say,
to grow
go-
beyond. She's still trying to experience life and savor it. Whereas the Merovingian, he says it himself, I have sampled all the languages. He's like, I love French the best. That's why I speak in it so often. I even love to swear in it. For him, it's all about everything French. And that's it for him. Whereas Persephone, she wants to continue to experience life. That's why she's kind of starved for that interaction. She realizes she's kind of latched herself onto this program that's kind of limited her and what she can experience herself as a program.
And she's finally starting to realize that, especially after having shared that kiss with Neo.
Well, and
because she's seen all the Merovingian's tricks, right? I mean, he did that whole thing in a restaurant with the girl eating the cheesecake or whatever, and it cuts to the Matrix looking background with her eating the cheesecake, and so we know what happens with that. But
exactly, yeah.
So and now, and then she goes and has that kiss with Neo, and then she's like, "There really is more."
Yes,
there really is more to all this.
It's like something. Well, okay. Remember what Smith said to Neo when Neo destroyed him? Something copied or implanted inside of him. He knew what he was supposed to do, but he didn't do it. He didn't return to the source. He stayed in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the same thing happened between when Persephone had physical interaction with Neo. Because think about it. Neo's function as the One is to rewrite or change anything that he wants to within the Matrix itself. Morpheus says this. Morpheus says this in the first movie. The One could remake the Matrix in any way he sees fit, and that could either mean consciously or subconsciously. Subconsciously, Neo didn't realize, even though he does eventually pick up on it very quickly. Oh yeah, I did something to Smith, and Smith is not like how he was before. He has evolved. He has changed. The same thing is kind of true with when Neo kisses Persephone. He has a physical interaction with her that changes her, per se, or maybe just reawakens
her
that
goal. Yeah, it either reawakens that sensory thing that she's supposed to do, or it makes her go beyond her programming. The same with Smith. I think when Neo fought Smith, I think Smith he went from being a safeguard for the system to becoming a threat to the system, a virus.
Well, he is now a rogue program. Remember how the other agent reacts to seeing him there in the park when Neo and the Smiths are having their fight. And the agent goes, "You." He's like, "Me.
You.
Me.
Me.
Now here's me too. But now here's the interesting thing too. If you didn't pick up on this, Smith now has just has a bit of Neo's personality, particularly his humor, and it's very dry humor, but it's still there. Because if you remember in the first movie, Neo does have kind of a very dry, almost I don't want to say sarcastic sense of humor.
Well, it's more like Smith a David Letterman type humor.
Yeah. Smith now has that same thing. It's the whole concept of the artificial art interacting with the organic. but at an accelerated rate. Because think about it. When Neo destroyed Smith,
He freed him from the system.
it caused his program to evolve.
It did. He freed him from the constraints of the system to let Smith go
Matrix.
beyond his original. Exactly. And I think that's where my theory comes in, that Smith is a quote unquote virus now, because he can propagate himself. Not just go from one person in the Matrix to this person, but now there's like 10 of them, 100 of them, as many as Smith wants. That's what a virus does inside a computer.
Exactly. Because if you remember, and we'll get, like I said, we'll get into this Sunday when I do my discussion on Revelation. Smith has pretty much co-opted every single person or every other program in the Matrix. Smith is a virus, and a very virulent one, and one that can even upload itself into an organic being. Now that's some trippy stuff right there, because you remember when you see those two soldiers or whatever from Zion are trying to get out and they're being chased by Smith. Smith kills one of them, assimilates the other, and now Smith is in a organic body.
He is. He's
now that, and you saw what Bane was doing to himself when he was going to try and kill Neo. He was using that knife to carve lines into his hand, like he's trying to self-mutilate himself into looking like something that he understands. Because you would figure that the agents would only understand themselves as a piece of software, as a program.
As a line of code.
As a line of code, exactly. He's now in a body of flesh and blood. And
now, you said Bane. That I could have swore.
I think that was the character's name, Bane.
I could have swore that was Cypher, though.
No, Cypher is from the first movie.
I know, but if you look at Bane and you look at Cypher, to me, I thought it was the same person when I watched these movies.
It's a different actor entirely.
But just the similarity between the two, it's almost like a resurrection of Cypher in my head, just because of how similar they look.
Well, the appearance doesn't really play into it. I would say that the actor who plays Bane looks more like Hugo Weaving, which was kind of deliberate. But they're not the same person, because Bane he's part of the military. He's part of the resistance and everything. He's not somebody that wants to be plugged back into the Matrix. He just happens to get co-opted and infected by Smith. And now you have Smith inside a human body that's overridden the original personality.
I know. I was just talking about like the bald head and the crazy eyes stuff.
Well, actually, Bane had a full head of hair. He didn't have bald eyes. He wasn't bald at all.
Man, what? Okay. I could have swore when Smith went into human form, it was in like a bald-headed guy that looked like Cypher.
Nope. Looks nothing like Cypher. Looks, like I said, it looks more like the actor does bear a slight resemblance to Hugo Weaving, which I think was deliberate, honestly. But it's a very slight resemblance. It's more around the eyes and the nose and everything. This portion of the face, which will obviously makes up the majority of our face. And I think they did that deliberately to kind of help
Smith in human form.
Yeah, essentially. Right? Yeah. But the personality, the character of Bane, he's nothing like Cypher. He doesn't want to be plugged back into the Matrix. He's part of the army. He's part of the resistance. He's just trying to, after he's co-opted by Smith, it's Smith now trying to kill Neo.
No, yeah, and I get all that. Yeah, I was just saying, I for some reason in my head, I was just thinking that. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, and that's even an interesting commentary in and of itself. an artificial construct inside a organic body.
An organic body.
That is something that
Well,
I don't think I've ever actually seen before.
yes, you have. If you watch Star Trek TOS, the Ultimate Computer, the M5, Dr. Daystrom impressed his own memory engrams into a piece of hardware.
Oh, is that like in the in TNG with the schizoid man?
Kind of, yes. Where Barclay
Okay.
takes over the yes, kind of on along the same lines, yes.
Okay, all right.
So that concept had been seen, just not on this scale.
Like before.
Right.
But
And also, TOS did do something like that with there were these aliens that were inside these spheres, and they were constructing android bodies that they were supposed to be put into, but they never got to it by the end of the episode. But they were doing that same thing. I can't remember the name of that episode, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been a Star Trek thing for a while. We just haven't seen it like on the Matrix scale until this movie.
Well, yeah, with the Matrix Reloaded.
Right.
But it is almost like the ultimate marrying of or the organic and the inorganic, or in this case, the artificial, if you want to use that terminology.
Right. It's more what we see as organic and artificial, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that was a nice spin on it.
Well, it really speaks to the strength of the writing for these movies. I know, I've watched a lot of reviews of people who have done reviews on these films and everything, and a lot of them just kind of dismissed them and everything and didn't. Hold on 1 second. Okay, that's fine, sci-fi. I'll be here. I think the sequels for the Matrix movies get a lot of, I think, undue hate. And I'll admit it and everything. For a little while, I kind of put them on the back burner. I didn't really revisit the Matrix films. I liked the first one. The first one for me was always one of those really standout films from the late 90s, right? Quite literally from the last year of the 1990s, 1999. And, coming back to this franchise 20 years on now, 2001 to 2011 to 2021, 20 years. Granted, it's a few years off, but 20 some odd years. Revisiting these films really has given me a fresh insight into them because thankfully of going through my seminary education and everything, and doing a lot of reading on different types of philosophy and examining different philosophical and minds and so on. People, philosophers, let me put it that way. And really kind of trying to expand my understanding of what has been put into these films. And, again, I say this, I don't care what gender the Wachowskis call themselves by, doesn't make a difference to me. They identify as women, okay, fine. You identify as a woman. I'm more interested in what's inside your head rather than how you look on the outside. That for me is the most important thing. So, okay. And I will say this about the Wachowskis, whether it's both of them or just one of them, because I understand that Lana Wachowski is the director and I think one of the writers for Matrix Resurrection. I'm just hoping that they can bring me an interesting story with this new movie and kind of expand upon what they were doing in the first three films. So, and if this does lead to another series of films that goes further on, and the movies are just as entertaining and as insightful as the other three were, then I think my time will be warranted to examine them again. to go see them and to continue to support this franchise, because this is a franchise I have been a fan of for a very long time. I mean,
yeah, me too.
It's one of the more, I think, innovative franchises, and obviously it's been copied a lot. I mean, after the first Matrix came out, we saw a lot of movies that tried to use that same stop motion technology to varying degrees of success or failure. And honestly, looking at Reloaded, a lot of people have commented upon one scene in particular, and we can't talk about it here because I know we've spent quite a bit of time on the whole philosophical and existential aspects of the film, but let's just take a few minutes from all this heavy conversation and just kind of break down some of the really interesting, just plain cool sequences within this film. I mean, primarily the highway chase. That right there was I think, a truly ambitious and I think a very well executed action sequence. I mean, I put it up there with some of the very best that have been put out in cinema.
Okay, that was Gone in 60 Seconds and Fast and the Furious before they were even thought of. Now, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There was movies back in the 70s called Gone with 60 Seconds. I used to have the dollar DVD. But the way they did that highway chase, okay, we've all seen highway chases in movies, but the way this movie did it,
they built.
Holy crap!
They built the freaking highway from the ground up, pretty much, and then they brought in several hundred stunt drivers, because those were the only people that they felt could do this thing right. And then
they wanted it to look real, because you got to remember, CGI was still in its infancy when this movie was made.
And like I mentioned before, just real quick, you can tell, even if it's not on a 4K TV, you can tell where the CGI starts to bleed through a bit much particularly with the scene between Neo and all the Agent Smiths and everything. Not so much in some other parts, and even in some of the flight scenes with Neo. But yeah, the CGI was still kind of in its infancy. It's not as polished and as clean as it is now. The characters, if it's a real life person, doesn't look as photorealistic as it does now. But you set that aside, the highway chase with all of those elements, it's mind-blowing.
And then you got the guy, I can't remember what they were. It was like the twins, where they could all of a sudden turn into ghost form and let the stuff go through them and then turn solid again.
Yeah, the twins. They were called the twins. The
twins. Just that alone, watching them do that during that whole sequence.
Now, I have a theory about the twins. I think they're like maybe the last remnants of the original agents for the Matrix. Because instead of being able to move super fast to dodge bullets, they simply phase. But here's the thing. Here's the inherent flaw with that. Once they phase, they can no longer interact with the environment around them.
Right, it's just like being phased by a transporter or a cloaking device from Star Trek. Same principle.
Yeah, essentially. Well, although with a cloaking device, you just can't be seen. I think it would be more accurate.
Okay, let me rephrase that. The cloaking device from the...
the Pegasus?
The Pegasus, yeah.
Yeah, okay, the phasing cloak. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, totally. And yeah, that was those two... The crazy thing was, those guys are actually, I think... And I'm not saying this to be rude or inconsiderate or anything. I think those two guys are actually albino, unless I'm wrong.
Nothing wrong with saying
they are twins.
They are.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of like, wow, they actually have albinos on screen. Cool. It's not makeup. But yeah, like I said, I think the twins were like leftovers or anything, or maybe the last of the predecessors for the current model of agent for the
Now,
Matrix.
are they still active programs or are they rogue programs? I never
I think
caught
I
on to
think they.
that.
Well, here's the thing. You remember what Persephone said to Neo and to Trinity and to Morpheus? The Merovingian has a habit of collecting rogue programs because he finds them interesting or feels that they will be useful. I think he saw the twins and he's like, "Hey, y'all are being wiped out. How about you come over and I'll keep y'all safe."
So the Merovingian's
That's
kind of like the mob boss of the Matrix program.
yeah, essentially. Yeah, he kind of is. He's a very pompous, a very arrogant, a very Frasian, loving mob boss.
Makes sense. I mean, if you're just using layman's terms. But,
yeah, essentially. So, but I think I will say this: the fight choreography for this film, both the martial arts, the gunplay, the sword work, particularly with Morpheus in that trench coat, and then even out of the trench coat with just the purple shirt and the vest and the tie, and that using that katana. He's bad, and that very iconic shot where he's got the machine pistol in one hand and the katana in the other. Can you say hide Morpheus badassery? I mean, really, Morpheus was at his badassiest in this film, particularly when he was fighting that one agent on the top of that moving semi.
Yes.
Oh my freaking gosh.
And then he lands on it and actually does physical damage to it, right? Like,
yeah.
He's not part of the Matrix because he lands on that semi and breaks the trailer in half. Damn. It's like, ow. And then the agent's just like, what? Okay.
Well, not only that, when Niobe catches Morpheus on the hood of that sports car, and she's like, "Get up there and kick his ass," and he's like, "Okay," and the agent's monologuing, getting ready to destroy the key maker, and he's like, "Excuse me, I'm still here." And he gets his katana, and he grabs that katana again, and you actually see a touch of anger on the agent's face because Morpheus cuts his face.
Mm-hmm. He was like,
again, speaking to the whole concept of a machine, a artificial program feeling a human emotion. It's very interesting storytelling, and it's all done through multi-layered story structure. And just in general, it's just a badass scene. Morpheus is like, come get it, bitch.
Come get some. Here I am.
Come get your.
He literally raises his hand and did just like he did to Neo. And
yes, he did.
Come here.
Well, even Neo did the same thing during the fight scene with all the Smiths when he's got that big metal pipe or pole.
Oh yeah.
And he does that little twirly thing with that pole, and then he's like, "Come get me."
Yeah, the four fingers. Like, come on. Yep.
It just, I remember in the years after the Matrix, people like at work or whatever, at some of the jobs I did, I like, they would do that same thing. They'd be like,
yep, bring it.
Come on, bring it. Bring it. It was like Matrix code for just bring it. Like The Rock.
It was for me before the movie, and it still is. But yeah, I thought that was awesome. Just the way they took that from the first movie, and then Morpheus did it fighting the agent, and then Neo did with all the Smiths, on that basketball court, whatever it was, that area with the big old 12-foot pipe, and
and he's
That
just
was it.
beating and Neo is just beating the ever loving crap out of all those agents, and you're like, go kick their ass, son. Just do it. Go kick their sorry, pathetic little asses. And
And
he
then
did.
they had to they like had to dial time down because he would have started going so fast you couldn't see
Yeah.
nothing. So then he slows down, and you just see all the Smiths one by one getting hit and going flying.
Yeah, and then they all dogpile him, and they're like, it is inevitable, inevitable, inevitable. And I'm thinking, who copied who? Did Thanos copy Agent Smith, or did Agent Smith copy Thanos?
I'm not up on my Thanos lore, so I couldn't answer that.
Well, it's actually from Avengers Endgame when Thanos gets the nanotech gauntlet, and he says to Stark, "I am inevitable," and then Stark wrestles with him for a minute and gets transfers the Infinity Stones from that gauntlet over to his own suit, and then he does that very iconic line, "And I am Iron Man." Snap.
Okay, cool. I can see that.
So maybe Thanos copied Agent Smith, but you know what? They are both equally great villains. I will just say that I think Agent Smith is one of the better villains that we got in the early 2000s. And I
Oh, by far.
just,
By far.
huh?
I said by far, yeah.
And I'll be interested to see if we get either a cameo or maybe a couple of scenes with Agent Smith, and because we don't know thus far if Agent Smith is even going to make an appearance. He very well may not. But I will say this for Hugo Weaving. He has great range as an actor. I mean, I kind of mentioned this a couple weeks ago when we did that first stream on the first Matrix film. Agent Smith, Hugo Weaving as Agent Smith, and then Hugo Weaving as Lord Elrod and as the voice of Megatron and as V from V for Vendetta. He has really good range as an actor because it takes a lot. I think it takes a lot of skill for an actor to be able to portray an antagonist and a protagonist both. I really do.
Especially without being typecast, because he could have been typecast as Agent Smith when that movie came out. Everybody could have looked at him and said, Mr. Anderson. That could have been his whole career. But, kudos to him, it's not. Because he has such a wide,
he has range.
Right.
He has good range. Yeah, I will say this. I say this somewhat sadly. I think he was sorely wasted as the voice of Megatron for the Transformers franchise. I get it. You're an actor. You have to work. You have to live. You have to make a living. I respect all that. I hope he's gotten back to doing some other things besides just being the voice of Megatron, because honestly, as much as I am a Transformers fan, 1980s kid right here, Transformers fan since 1984 or 83, since I read my first Transformers comic, really, and got my first Transformers toy back in 83 or 84. After a while, I hated the Michael Bay films. I did. I
watched them. I wasn't a fan of them, though. I mean, on the surface, yeah, okay, but having watched the cartoons and playing with the toys as a kid back in the 80s, it was just like, I was almost like, what is this? Kind of.
Yeah. Well, I'm the same way. I mean, I liked the first film. The second one was okay. I watched the third one, and I was like, what the hell did I just experience? This movie stinks. And after that, I never watched another Transformers movie. I'm not even going to check out Beast Wars. I don't care. I don't.
Yeah. Even as a kid, I couldn't believe in my head that had anything to do with Transformers. I'm like, there's no way Beast Wars is part of Transformers.
Now, I will say this: the animated series, the CGI animated series they did back in the late '90s, I actually did enjoy that. No, I'm talking about the fact that they're doing a Beast Wars film, live action film, as I understand it.
Oh,
I have
why?
I because Michael Bay hasn't ruined the Transformers enough, evidently.
Why doesn't he just bring Mark Singer back as the Beastmaster? Come on, man. That's about as good as that movie's gonna be.
Yo, the sad thing is, I actually enjoyed the Beastmaster film. I did. Well, you know what other franchise Mark Singer is attached to, and it's a franchise I absolutely love. It's also from the 1980s. And I
V.
started. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I know there's a lot of people out there that are fans of the original V miniseries from the 80s.
Heck
Just
yeah.
fun fact. I have both V and V: The Final Battle on Blu-ray.
What did you think about the reboot they did?
I never watched it.
You didn't? Give it a watch if you get a chance. It's not bad. It's not the 80s, granted, it's not the 80s version, but okay, you got to remember this came out right after the BSG reboot, so it does have, in my mind, that production quality.
Yeah, but I like the BSG reboot that I do the original BSG. Just saying. I do. I like the reboot better than the original. Call me a sci-fi heretic.
No, I'm not going to call you a heretic. I mean, I can see why you'd say that. Like my only problem with it when I first watched the mini series in 2003 was Starbuck was a girl, but I got over that in a quick hurry.
Yeah, because the actress Katie Sackhoff, she's great. She's a great
awesome.
actress.
I mean, okay. You had Face Man from the A-Team playing Starbuck in the original BSG, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was Starbuck before Face Man, but I mean,
probably
okay, right? So that to me was who Starbuck was, a womanizing 80s dude from Malibu Beach, right? So and then I see and then I see this girl and I'm like, how the heck is she gonna pull off Starbuck? And then the attitude kicked in. I'm
exactly.
Like, there you go. That's Starbuck.
It was all about the attitude. Could Katie Sackhoff have the same attitude or a better attitude, and could she do just as good? The thing for me with the BSG reboot is the story was a lot more evolved, is a lot better developed. I also like the camera work was a lot better. I do like the fact that they do pay homage to the original series in the reboot. You know, with the design of with the early versions of the Cylons, the Centurions.
They do. They're like, those models still exist. Oh, they have their purposes. They have their uses.
I do like the fact. Well, not to mention all the spin-off movies that they have done within the BSG universe. You've got Blood and Chrome, you've got Razor, and all those other things. And I think honestly, you know, I know there are other channels out there that cover BSG, and you know what? I respect them for that. I've got I will always be a fan of BSG, the BSG reboot. For me, it is, I think, on par with one of my favorite franchises from the 90s and the early 2000s, Babylon 5. And you know, I've had a lot of people ask me, both in private and on air and everything, how do I feel about the announcement for the reboot of B5? The fact that Straczynski, the man who created the entire universe, is involved I am very optimistic for it.
Mm-hmm. I follow him on Twitter, actually, and he does a great job answering everybody that tags him. Yeah. He either has a sarcastic comeback or he's saying, well, look, this is what it is. And, you know, and he actually responds to people. And that's saying something, because a lot of people in his position wouldn't give two S's and an F about responding back to people.
Well, you know, I think one of the good things, and it depends on the creative. If you look at somebody like JMS, the fan base for his work is a very positive one. There
It is.
there has never, as far as I know anyway, and I have been a longtime fan of B5. There has never been a whole lot of infighting within this fan group, and I'm happy to say that, and I'm happy to see it. They are truly a personification of the hashtag that I have. No more division. There is no division in the B5 fandom.
You know,
We
one
are all
thing that
fans. We all love this universe. We all love the characters. We love the writing. We love the people that worked on making it. And I have a few acquaintances. I have a few friends, and everything, particularly on our stream that we do weekly, who don't feel as optimistic about the reboot as others do, and particularly myself. But you know what? I don't perceive their fandom as lesser than mine.
Mhm.
Their fandom is equal. We are equal in our fandom. We are equal in our love of Babylon 5. And I say this until until they prove to me otherwise, that they are not going to do the legwork and put in the same level of effort and care with this reboot series as they did with the original, I'm going to give them a chance, because they have not given me cause to not give them a chance. I have always, since I've been on YouTube these last 2 years with my channel and everything I've done, I have always tried to give everybody a fair shake and a fair hearing until they prove to me otherwise, that I need to back away or step away. And when it comes to people that create the media that I consume, until they prove to me that they are not worthy, that they are not worth my time, then I am going to give them a chance. And when it comes to kind of get us back on to the topic of the evening, when it comes to the Matrix franchise, the Wachowskis have not given me reason to not believe that they can tell a good, competent, multi-layered story. And until they prove otherwise, I'm going to give their work a chance. I'm going to go into Matrix Resurrection with an open mind. I'm not going to go into it closed-minded saying it's instantaneously trash or it's garbage or it's bad just because of a trailer or because of my feelings.
So you're not going to do 2 weeks worth of videos trash talking something that you haven't even seen yet, just because of who may or may not be involved and this and that.
For me, I am first and foremost, I am a fan. But secondly, I am also a content creator on this platform. And people come to me because they know I will give an honest and fair critique. I will have an honest conversation with people.
And they know that is your own personal take on it, not what you think everybody else should think about it.
Precisely.
That's just what you think. Not you're not trying to tell people what they should think. That's just your own feelings on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just like me. If they want to disagree, great.
And hey, Ace, I hope you enjoyed the stream. We're probably going to wrap up here in a few minutes and everything, but it is good to see you. I hope I hope everything gets back to normal for you, and I'll be in touch with you, and I hope to see you here Saturday night. If you haven't caught any of my updates or anything, Saturday night I'm celebrating 2 years on YouTube. Going live. Going to be doing a discussion on Ghostbusters Afterlife, means I am going to go see it in theater tomorrow afternoon. Going to be making an announcement on a project I've been working on for a little over a year, and we're just going to kind of celebrate 2 years of the AW, of the Ambassadorial Wing. And you take care, bud. I'll be in touch with you, and we'll catch you next time. So,
but Ambassador. I was thinking, I went back through my videos, and my very first video I uploaded was on the 17th, yesterday, 2 years ago. So I know you're doing your celebration this Saturday, so I'll definitely be joining you. Not sure if I'm doing my own 2-year celebration thing or not. I didn't even do a first-year one.
if I think for everybody, it's a personal preference. Either you want to acknowledge it or you don't. I just happen to want to because for me, it's not just about me. It's about this thing that I have tried to build these last 2 years.
It's about our community. It's about our. I hate to
Yeah.
call them a fan base. I don't want to call anybody that watches me a fan base. They're my viewers, and if they watch me, particularly the ones that show up on a regular basis, I'll call my friends. Right? They're my YouTube friends because they
Yes.
show up. They support me. They take time out of their day to come to my little channel to see what I have to say, and that is humbling. That is so humbling.
Well,
It's amazing.
Well, and that reminds me of a comment. It's actually a tagline that a good friend of mine, Orange Hat Reviews, has for himself. Stay humble. That's a sentiment I wholeheartedly agree with. And, I don't know where this is going to lead me ultimately. I don't know if I'll ever get as big as some of the others out there. Would I like to see it? Yeah, sure. But I'm
I'd
kind
like
of
to
in
see
this.
you get the. I'd like to see you get the 500. Just get your community tab.
Well, as of right now, I am at 463, so I'm roughly 37 away. If I'm doing my math right, I'm 37 away from 500. So we're getting there.
And I believe you can do it, man. You have some great live streams. You have some great videos.
I try. Well, the thing I talked about a couple weeks ago, I'm going to be I'm going to be doing the big premiere, the big announcement Saturday, because I've gotten that pretty much finalized now. I'm going to be reaching out to other channels that are, well, slight hint. I'm going to be reaching out to other channels that are focused around Star Wars because that's what this project is focused around. I do have a kind of, I'm flirting with the idea of having a hashtag for it, calling it Project Unity. I know that may sound a bit on the nose, but it's.
I think it could work.
So, like I said, it's something I'm playing around with. I've worked on another project and everything with another individual that I've streamed with on various occasions. We've had some really good conversations and everything, and we talk on the regular on Twitter and so on and everything. So, but gonna be making an announcement about that as well, about a project that he and I collaborated on. So, but Sci-Fi, I'm gonna let you have the final. I'm gonna let you have the final thought on Matrix Reloaded, and then we'll probably call it a night.
My final thoughts on Matrix Reloaded. If there was ever a second movie in a trilogy that didn't leave you disappointed, it's this one. It wasn't slow. It wasn't sluggish. It had lots of great story in it. It continued stories. It brought up new story. It advanced character lines, resolved some others. To me, if you're going to do a second movie, this is the way to do it. And that's just the basic way I can put it. Because I've seen trilogies, and to me, most second movies in a trilogy, except for this and Back to the Future, have been lacking.
Sci-Fi, you're leaving out one.
Okay, yeah, the original Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah, Empire.
So it slipped my mind for a second. It's right behind you too, and it still slipped my mind. But
it's okay.
Yeah, I'm just going off the top of my head here. So.
It's okay. No harm, no foul. So go ahead. Go ahead, bud.
But yeah, I mean, okay. So with the exception of this, Back to the Future, and the original Star Wars trilogy, and yes, to me, I was born in '76, so to me, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi is the original Star Wars trilogy. That's just me.
It is. It is. No, it is EOT. It is the original trilogy. That is its
So-
designation. It is.
but
That is
these-
its designation.
These three franchises are the only ones in my immediate mind that have a decent second movie in a trilogy.
Yeah.
And with talking about the Matrix, they couldn't have done a better job.
Yeah.
With what they were working with.
I agree. Wholeheartedly. So, well, and for myself, The Matrix is a catacomb, or not catacomb. It is a collection of many of my favorite tropes. It is a great action franchise. It is a franchise that gives the opportunity for lots of very deep discussion on a philosophical level. It has some really great martial art fight choreography and just in general martial arts fighting in general. It's visually stunning. I mean, granted, some of the effects are dated. I will acknowledge that, but for the time, it looked good. Now, it does look dated, but I think if you move past the dated effects and really get into the story and the characters, that's where this franchise still shines. And I think for me, that's why I will come back to this franchise maybe a little more frequently now than I have in the last several years, and why I might seek out a either Blu-ray or 4K collection of the original 4 films. I know they probably haven't done a 4K update on the Animatrix, but at least for the live action films, I'm definitely going to see if I can find those on Blu-ray or 4K because I do want them back in my collection. Because
And I do have sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say I have a couple of Matrix games for my PS2,
Yeah,
and
I remember the
when I
games.
get a capture card, I may stream some of those Matrix games from the PS2.
Dude, that'd be awesome. Truly. You should do that. Because those games were fun. They were.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway. But anyways, folks, thank you all for being here tonight. Make sure if you catch us on the replay, leave your comments down below with anything that me or Sci-Fi brought up during our discussion tonight. Make sure you go over and check out Sci-Fi Nation's channel. He has left the link for his channel in the comments. I will try and, if when I have time the next day or so, I will put it down into the description as well. And make sure you go check out his Discord. Because
it's real easy to get a hold of me. Just go to my channel, youtube.com/sci-fi nation. No dashes, no spaces. The links to the rest of my stuff is in my channel description. So
exactly. So, but anyways, folks, again, thank you all for being here tonight. Like I said, leave your comments with anything me and Sci-Fi discussed this evening. Let us know your thoughts on Matrix Reloaded. And as I mentioned, Sunday afternoon, I'll be back. We'll be wrapping up this series with Matrix Revolutions. That will be at 2:15 Central Time. I know that sounds like a very odd time, but I'm planning on going to church. I want to make sure I leave myself enough time to get home afterwards. And of course, I'll be back tomorrow afternoon with the Council of Ones. We'll be doing we'll be continuing our review of season 4 of Babylon 5 with the episode Intersections in Real Time. And then, of course, this Saturday at between 7 and 7:15, I will be going live with a second ambassadorial anniversary stream. Like I said, I'll be doing my review of Ghostbusters Afterlife. We'll be just reminiscing about the last 2 years of the ambassadorial wing, and got an announcement on a project that I've been working on for the past year or so, and want to give you all the full rundown on it now that it is done. So, anyway, folks, y'all have a great night. We will see you later this weekend, and until next time, these are the ambassadors signing off.